Okay, so I've been on this quest to get some medical treatment at some hospital because I've been having some issues recently. I guess life just keeps piling on problems on top of me as if it wasn't enough. But this kind of quest has made me realize certain things because I've been going to so many hospitals, so many clinics, so many places trying to get something, and it's been so difficult. And not only that, but the state of these places is really disgusting and terrible. And it just really makes you feel like society is rotting from the inside. I mean, I went to this hospital recently, this big hospital, and there aren't many big hospitals in my city, and all of them suck except one that is decent, but pretty much everything else suck. So I went to this hospital that sucks, and I went inside, and the first thing you see is an old lady sitting on a table, just an old table in the middle of a staircase, and that's like the reception, and it's really weird. They don't have a phone, they don't have anything on their desk. You can kind of just ask them vague questions, and they're gonna help you a little bit. So that's already bizarre, but then you actually enter the corridors of the hospital and you start walking and you realize that it's completely destroyed. There's holes in the walls, the doors are falling apart, like uh there's like tape everywhere. Like it feels like the building's about to collapse. And I don't even understand how that can be maintained, how that's possible. I'm not sure if there was some kind of issue in the hospital or if the entire hospital is like this part that I saw, but it's really bizarre, and this is one of the biggest hospitals, so it really makes you wonder where the resources are going. How is this even acceptable? But then, of course, I also started looking at the people who are actually there, and uh, all the people there, of course, are just people who are on the end of their life, people who are just forgotten, just like dead souls, dead men standing, because it's all these old people that look like if you just push them with a finger, they would just collapse immediately. All these probably old people who just don't have anything in life or anybody, who have no idea what's happening, and they're just on the edge of life. And everybody there was like that. There wasn't any younger person. Everybody was some old person waiting to die, and all these people who just look completely destroyed by life. And it's really like it looks like hell or something, because if you want a depressing place, you gotta go there. And it just made me think, like, what is even this? Like, this is very disturbing, like a very disturbing environment, and they're not being taken care of. They're not being taken care of well anyway. It's not like they're getting better. In fact, I'm sure they're getting worse. Some of them are. I don't know what's happening with them, but I looked also at the employees, and the employees don't even speak like English. They're very bizarre. I mean, I don't know where they got these people, but they don't seem qualified at all. And it's also that's even more disturbing, because how can you does that mean they're having difficulties finding staff for the hospital? Does that mean that this is the best people they have? Does that mean that we're lacking resources to actually do something here? Because, like, how is this acceptable that we have people who are seem like they have no idea what they're doing, taking care of people's lives? I mean, is this really acceptable? Like, it's really depressing and weird, and it made me just. I mean, I asked some questions if they had some services, and they said they didn't have anything for me. So I just walked out anyway, and I was happy to walk out because that place was just depression. It looked, as I said, it looked like some form of purgatory, of hell or something. Like you're gonna become depressed if you just walk in there. Like, and that's only one of the places. Of course, I've been going to so many, and all of them looked something like that. Some of them are better, some of them are worse, and there's so many like weird little issues that you can point out with these places. The fact that there there's almost never a doctor in any of these clinics. That there's only like one doctor if there's one. The fact that there's only even a couple clinics in the entire city. It's kind of bizarre. It seems like it shouldn't be that way. It seems like this isn't really livable. And my guess is that it's not. My guess is that people are feeling pain, and like just like me, they're not actually able to get anything, and they're not there isn't actually anything available, and we're kind of just eating the cost as a society of all this misery. And for some reason, nothing happens. I mean, I guess nobody cares to solve these issues. I mean, I don't know if it's that hard, but I guess this is just another byproduct of this terrible situation that we have now, and nobody talks about it enough. I mean, but it is what it is. And going to these places, I have to walk a lot because they're in weird places, and of course it's cold outside, which doesn't help at all. But I've had the time to look around, and I've been observing kind of the city and the stores and the places, and I've made some interesting observations. Like, a lot of the city is very old. It's all old people, which is another kind of evidence, as if we needed more, that demographics are not healthy at all. I mean, not only are so many of the people old, and that's not good for society because we're lacking in resources. We have to pay to make these people survive, and there isn't anybody younger to actually work and do these jobs. But even the younger people that you see, it just seem like they're destitute. They don't seem like they're well adjusted at all, and that's not a surprise because they probably have terrible families. Their parents are probably pretty old too. They don't relate to them at all. They can't really give them any advice because times change so much. The economy is terrible, job market's terrible. They don't really have much opportunities. Education is just a mess. The internet is a parasite on your mind sometimes. It's just I think we see the effect of so many of these things, and of course forget about like relationships or any of this stuff. I mean, I haven't seen any of that. I haven't, especially not anything healthy. Maybe a little bit here and there, but I'm genuinely not sure. I mean, it seems like people are just like individuals that are just like living on autopilot, waiting to just get hit by a car or something. Like, people are just seem like they're desperate, and it's once again coping. I mean, a lot of this stuff that I saw was also coping. A lot of the businesses that you see, and I think they also like they take on the role of helping people cope too. Like, businesses that you wouldn't expect, like food, of course, that's a classic one, and compulsive consumption, just buying a bunch of shit and going to these places. Like, you just keep seeing, once you have the eye for it, once you're looking for it, you just keep seeing like the same sadness and desperate people kind of trying to make themselves feel better, and there's just something sad about that. And not only that, but I've also seen a lot of churches, because there's a lot of churches around, and all of them, of course, are abandoned. A long time ago, they were abandoned. Nobody's set foot in there in a long time, at least not a believer. And interestingly, it kind of made me wonder, like, what replaced these churches? Because, I mean, the people who were going to these churches, there was a lot of people. I mean, did they just stop altogether? Did it really just completely disappear? I mean, their children, do they not go to these places? Their grandchildren, did it just completely disappear, really? Or did another place kind of replace it? And I was kind of looking around, and there was an interesting case where one of the churches got turned into a restaurant. And that just made me think, like, maybe, that's one of the observations I've had. Like, maybe these restaurants, these businesses, like, they are taking on the role that these churches used to take, of kind of creating a little bit of a community, and kind of making people feel a little bit better, kind of making people feel like they have a little bit of a purpose. And I know it sounds a little bit silly. I mean, how can a business do that? And I don't think businesses really do that nearly as well as like the religion used to back in the day. But I think they kind of take on the same role, in the sense that they give you something to look forward to give you, something to desire, to have a little bit of hope into, to maybe, feel like you're with people, you're in a restaurant, you're in a place, you're participating in something, you're doing something with someone, in activity. It's kind of giving you a little bit of a feeling of life, and that's why a lot of people like to live next to restaurants and next to businesses and next to this kind of middle of the city and bars and all that. Even though it doesn't really matter, there's just a feeling that you can go do anything you want at any time, that there's just people waiting for you around you, that you're like part of a moment and part of something, that you're not alone. I think people are attracted to these kinds of feelings. And it's kind of sad when you think about it. Like, did we lose something with these churches? Like, is it sad that these churches got hollowed out and replaced by like businesses? In a sense, it's genuinely sad, because if you're whether you're religious or not, like, I feel like there was something better about these beliefs, about something like a church, than just these consumption kind of type things. Because one of them isn't really exploitative in the same way. One of them it doesn't really ask anything of you, and it's a more genuine community. But maybe that's something we lost, I don't know. But I've been looking at that, and I've been thinking about that, because I think a lot of the issues we have nowadays, I've talked about this again, they're really about like people's connection to each other. Like, even a lot of the political issues and gender issues and whatever issues, like, I think a lot of them have to do with just people not really understanding each other, not living in the same place, not living the same lives, not experiencing the same things, because their interests over time are going to diverge. Like, if you looked at the election that didn't just happen, but that happened recently in the United States, and with the president and all, if you look at that, a lot of the votes, if you look at the voting map, a lot of the votes come that are more that are for the Republicans come from more rural areas, and the ones that are for the Democrats come from the big cities, in a very disproportional degree. And I don't know if anybody really notices that, but I feel like that's a really important thing. Like, why are they so divided in that way? And I think it's kind of obvious, because a lot of the people in the big cities, they benefit from a lot of the things that are kind of more recent, that are more associated with Democrats and all. Kind of things like, a certain type of culture, a certain type of things, of interests. It's completely different than the people in the more rural areas, who have actually suffered because of a lot of these things. And their interests have just completely diverged, because they live different lives, they receive different things, they're impacted by things differently. And I think that's probably one of the most fundamental aspects of kind of keeping a society cohesive together. People just need to be similar. People need to live similarly. People need to kind of be impacted similarly by the changes and the decisions and all that, because otherwise their interests diverge. It's like you're creating a new nation inside of the nation by rewarding one of the groups and punishing the other one every time. Of course, they're going to start to hate each other and go in opposition to each other. But, I don't really care about politics. I think it's largely a waste of time, but I think it's kind of an observation I've had. And especially looking around, like, it really feels like we've already lost, in a sense. Like, I don't really have much hope in anything getting better. I mean, things have just been going downhill for like the past, who knows, for us a long time really, but especially in the recent times, in the past 10 years, 20 years, it's been getting worse and worse than even the most recent years. And it just is happening, and it seems like we're not able to stop it at all. We're just unable to stop our misery. And I don't know everything about the subject, so I don't know why it's exactly happening. Is it really just people making bad decisions, or is there kind of a more fundamental basis? Maybe there's a lack of certain resources in the world. Maybe it's because of conflict, maybe because of COVID, maybe because of, I don't know, who knows what, maybe because of some niche thing that I don't know about. It's made things difficult, but like, so many things just get worse and worse, and it seems like unbelievable. Like, housing is so expensive now. I don't even know who buys these houses. I genuinely don't understand it. Like, these houses are so expensive. It's unlivable. And I think a lot of the houses are owned by really old people who just don't want to give it up, who just are trying to stop people from building around because they want to keep their property value. A lot of stuff like that. And society is just like stagnating, and it's just destroying itself. And in a way, maybe it's not such a surprise that that's happening. Maybe I kind of saw it coming. I don't have much kind of trust in human nature. I feel like people are just gonna fuck each other over and like kind of be selfish, because the future isn't really real to people. I mean, they try to live their own life and do the best for themselves, and when you kind of compound that with all the individuals in society, I mean, it just creates a certain kind of effect where people just grab buckets into the bottom, and not just it's just dilapidated. I mean, it's unbelievably depressing. Like you go outside, like I don't even know. Like I was outside the other day, and I was like, this is so terrible. Like I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I don't want to deal with this. I don't even want to see this. But what's funny is that I remembered in that moment that even back home, there's nothing for me. I mean, really, there is nothing for me back home. Not only is there nobody, is there no thing to do, but even the internet, which is like one of the rare things that I have that is a little bit interesting in life, is a bunch of garbage. I mean, it's really terrible, and I've been realizing that increasingly. Like, the internet should absolutely just be used as a tool, um, as like a tool. It shouldn't be used to like create your. It shouldn't be used to like get your beliefs from, to get invested in, to I don't know, create some kind of life in there. Like, you should just use it as a tool for something and keep minimal keep minimal exposure to it, because so many people have just lost their mind on the internet. Like, it's had a big effect on people. I think people don't understand, like, the idea that you're going to expose an entire generation of people from almost birth to a screen that shows a series of images from who knows where, from anywhere they want, interactions from whoever they want, anytime they want, and pornography, anything, all these weird things, all these ideologies and whatever, all these weird ideas. You would just pump that into, just throw that in everybody's face from a young age constantly and not expect that to have some kind of psychological impact. It's just insane. Like, I think a lot of people have been damaged by this, and I think maybe myself. I can see so many of the things I've done. Like, I've just been trying to shake off a lot of these ideas, like, of like, these silly ideas of like, you need to be a certain kind of person, you need to make a certain kind of money, you're not good enough, you just need to try harder. That's why I make a lot of fun of these ideas of like, you need to try harder, you need to be the man, you need to blah blah blah, like, because people keep gaslighting us on the internet about these things. People just keep pretending like they're better than everybody and keep trying to give people lessons. Like, you don't need to listen to these people. You shouldn't listen to, ideally you should listen to your family if you had a good family, but people don't have good families. People just don't have that nowadays. A lot of, what's the number? I think like maybe 40% of like relationships just don't are like single parents or something, like almost, which is like crazy. Like, people don't have good families at all. A lot of them have only one parent, and if they have like two parents or even one parent, like, you don't know the quality of that family. I think people are really being raised in a very kind of, just a very painful way. I don't think people are being raised in a healthy way at all. I think that's enabling a lot of this bad behavior of seeking like advice online, seeking like, you're like pretending like people online are like your idols and following them and following ideologies and following whatever and trying to make money online and all this stuff. Like, it's mostly delusions and hoaxes and scams, but people just follow it because I guess they just have no other hope in life. They're just so desperate that they're just gonna follow that, and it's just a kind of a crazy thing to see. I just think it just, I mean, I'm like seeing my society rots, and like we're just all, I mean, I don't know what to even say. It's kind of sad, and nobody does anything with it. And the most powerful people, I mean, I don't even think they're really smart or anything. I think they're just living for their own interests, and they're just like tanking everything. It's kind of just the way things have ended up being. Like, just look at some of the richest man on the planet is like complaining on Twitter, and like, people are just silly now. Like, none of this is productive, none of this is like a good idea, but we're kind of just stuck in this situation of where like we're being led by just clowns, and people are just stupid. They just have no idea. They're being lied to all the time. They're hungry, like, they're weak, they can't do anything, and like, it seems like a hopeless situation. It seems like a hopeless kind of a situation. And um and yeah, and what doesn't help is, obviously, individually, socially, of course you're going to experience all the usual pains of, being ignored and treated terribly, especially if you try to, whatever you try to do, if you try to explain how people in some way or anything, people are just going to spit in your face. Nobody's going to respect you, nobody's going to like you, nobody's going to try to help. People are like pretty much animals. Like, they're gonna they're just not gonna it's just not worth it at all. It's just not worth it at all to try to help people, or even make friendships or relationships. Usually it's a bad idea. I mean, sometimes it can be good. If you're really lucky, you can meet someone that makes your life easier, but like, nowadays it's hard to even see a person, to even see with your eyes a person that might be appealing, and that's only the first step. They actually need to like you back, they need to be present. It's just, things are just extremely difficult, and and that's why this generation has so many mental illnesses, so many issues with relationships and friendships. And people will pay lip service to that and pretend like they care about the problem, but nobody cares. Nobody's actually going to do anything about this, and it's just going to keep happening. And who knows where exactly that's going to go. Like, I think right now, like, I think I've said this before, but like, the norm is to have no children and to not be in a relationship. Like, almost, I think, like, it's abnormal to be married and with children. I think that's not being the case in so long, like, never, probably. And that's kind of a scary fact, but I think that's kind of it for now.